You're listening to the ESP, the European Skeptics Podcast, an independent weekly show set out to bring you news, interesting topics, and interviews with people mostly from Europe, building bridges and breaking down language barriers to show the world how active and awesome the skeptical movement is in the region. This is episode 497. I'm your host, András Skeptics, and joining me for the show is my co-host Pontus Böckman. See ya!
Hejsan, András! Hi. You're out traveling again, I think.
Yes, I'm currently in the US. I'm happy to report that I was allowed into the country.
They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, they have no freaking idea. And traveling from national park to national park, taking my group.
Do they still have those? The national parks?
Yeah,
I thought they were all scrapped.
I have noticed the changes though.
Oh.
So, first of all, you don't see that many rangers anymore. Park rangers, I'm pretty sure, have been the first to go when the budget cuts kicked in.
Okay.
And the other thing is that at several of the places, they could not give us like the usual brochures and those foldable maps.
Okay.
Just the less informative, not very colorful ones. And they did claim that it was due to budget reasons. They just don't have enough of them. So, interesting.
How about Smokey the Bear? Is he still around?
Yeah, of course.
Yes, okay. He works for free. It's terrible. I shouldn't joke. It's, all right. Hope they let you leave then. Or to the country that you want to leave to, so they don't deport you to Uganda or something like that.
Okay. Or North Korea or something. That would be nice. Okay, I don't want to go. I'm going to go back home. And I'm going to stay there for a while, but I won't.
Speaking of the US, I talked about the US last week. I talked about Bobby, RFK Jr. And as I listened back to it, I called him JFK at least twice, and you didn't react. So, of course, it's not JFK, it's RFK. Very big difference between the two persons there. I'll call him Bobby from now on, then, so that it'll be easier.
Yeah, let's call him Bobby. I don't think he deserves to be called in any kind of a respectful name anyway. So, no, Bobby is the most fitting one.
Yeah.
Little Bobby, the silly boy.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. And speaking of mistakes and speaking of things that are not necessarily true, I'll be talking about some of those things in a Skeptics in the Pub online talk.
Great.
Which is happening on the 25th of September. So if anyone listening to this would like to tune in, just go to Skeptics in the Pub online and you'll find my face with the advertisement of my talk there. So just click on it, and when the time comes, you'll be able to follow and submit your questions and all that. Obviously, I'll be talking about what I know best, tourism, and how much of a bullshit factory it is. I have covered a couple of things about that at Skepticamp talks, but this will be a bit of a longer one.
Yeah, and the website there is sitp.online. So
exactly.
That's the easiest way to find it. Sorry, I will miss it probably. But maybe I'll catch it later when it's recorded, because they record everything and it's on YouTube later. But I will be at the Gothenburg Book Fair at the time.
Good for you.
So if anybody Swedish or other people who are listening to this are going to the book fair anyway, because it's a big thing. I mean, they have I think over the 4 days they have about 100,000 visitors. So it's a really big thing. But look up the stand we have there. Vetenskap och folkbildning. That's the Swedish skeptics. Together with the Swedish humanists, we have actually 3 stands there. 1 each for our books and t-shirts and stuff. And then a common one that we share, where we have happenings and panel debates and interviews and things like that. But come along and say hi if you are there.
Great. So good luck with all that. And I'll be home for 5 days between this tour and the next one. Out of those 5, for those 5 days, I'll be busy with events like that for 3 of them.
Ooh.
So on Wednesday, before the talk, I'll be attending a bit of a comedy show as a guest. So it's like we'll be mocking flat earth theories and the like. So there are 2 regular hosts and I'll be their guest.
Is this online or is it a physical thing?
No, it's a physical thing. It's a physical thing. And another one that is a physical thing, but apparently there's quite a bit of an attendance usually, is going to be on the occasion of something that is called Night with the Researchers. It's a regular annual thing that is happening in Hungary. And, well, there is this institution called Zoltán Boy. He was a very famous Hungarian researcher. And named after him, this institution promotes science and scientific thinking. And they asked me to participate in a panel discussion about online misinformation. So that's where I'm headed to. So pretty busy week when I'm home.
Yeah, we get around. And then soon, I mean, we're still, is it 6 weeks or to QED, right?
Yeah. Oh, not even that. It's like a month.
Oh, a month. I better get packing my bags then. Yeah.
And less than a month till we reach episode 500.
Ooh.
So stay tuned, listeners, because we will announce our plans for 500 very soon. By the way, in that busy week that I'm spending home, we have to schedule a recording as well, which is a bit of a challenge these days. But luckily, we have managed so far. And let's do this week's show, shall we?
Yeah, let's start with this one.
And the start is usually with something that we call This Week in Skeptical History, or TWISH. This week, I decided to commemorate one of archaeology's most significant discoveries. Partly because, apart from its importance from a scientific point of view, there are some mysteries surrounding it too. On the 19th of September 1991, German hikers Erika and Helmut Simon found what they initially believed was the body of a recent mountaineering victim, but instead they had stumbled on Europe's oldest natural mummy, the 5,300-year-old remains of a man. The discovery ended up revolutionizing our understanding of Copper Age life. The site of this discovery was a glacier at 3,210 meters above sea level near Tisinjoch in the Ötztal area on the Austrian-Italian border. And because of this environment that it was found in, the mummy, later given the nickname Ötzi, after Ötztal of course, was preserved in an exceptional condition. And when archaeologist Konrad Spindler examined the copper axe found with the remains, just 5 days later, he immediately recognized the find's antiquity and estimated it to be at least 4,000 years old. And later radiocarbon dating revealed Ötzi to have lived sometime between 3,350 and 3,105 before current era. So we're talking about 5,300 years of age for that, potentially. Ötzi's preserved remains have yielded unprecedented insights into Copper Age European life, so it's totally understandable that researchers like to call the discovery the holy grail of glacial archaeology. In fact, the discovery was what launched glacial archaeology as a scientific discipline, because it demonstrated that high-altitude ice could preserve organic materials for millennia. And of course, that led to systematic searches for prehistoric remains in glacial environments worldwide. And as climate change accelerates glacier retreat, archaeologists continue discovering ancient artifacts and remains across the Alps, Scandinavia, and even North America and Asia. So everywhere. So, Ötzi. This guy seems to have carried the world's only complete Copper Age toolkit, revealing sophisticated craftsmanship and extensive trade networks. With that, his copper axe, made from 99.7% pure copper, contained copper ore sourced from southern Tuscany, some 400 kilometers away from where it was found. And the guy's equipment included a longbow, flint-tipped arrows in a leather quiver, a flint dagger, fire-starting materials, and birch bark containers. So he was quite well equipped to roam the area.
I'm surprised he didn't have a Swiss Army knife. I think he seemed to be very well equipped.
It could well be that this was the Swiss Army knife of the age. I mean, it was something very, very similar. But mind you, it was Copper Age, not the Iron Age yet. So it's a different era. So lots of scientific analyses have been done, and advanced analysis has revealed a mind-blowing amount of detail about his existence and his demise as well, including his physical characteristics, his medical state, and even some potential medicinal practices of the time he lived. So this is where we will connect it a little bit to skepticism as well. So what we do know about Ötzi currently is that he was a roughly 45-year-old man who stood about 1.57 meters tall and weighed approximately 50 kilos. His last meal, which he consumed 30 to 120 minutes before his death, based on the level of change of the materials in the stomach, it consisted of ibex and red deer meat, along with an ancient type of wheat, which is altogether a very high-fat meal, providing energy for alpine survival. Now, the most fascinating pieces of research have been done in Ötzi's DNA. And recent analysis revealed a couple of very interesting things. For example, he most likely had brown eyes, type O blood. He was probably, most likely, lactose intolerant and possessed genetic predispositions to male pattern baldness and cardiovascular disease. And that's just his genetic makeup. Ötzi was also found to have suffered from multiple ailments, including degenerative joint disease, which was affecting his knees, his hips, and his spine. He had stomach ulcers, a possible Lyme disease, and arterial calcifications, which indicated a serious cardiovascular risk. One more thing, interestingly, he had intestinal parasites as well, including a whipworm, which is usually associated with warmer climates. So that raises a whole lot of questions that I will not discuss here and now. So if we consider all these predispositions and actual ailments, well, no wonder he died, right? So case closed. But actually not, because Ötzi's death has become a bit of a murder mystery. In 2001, an X-ray analysis revealed a flint arrowhead that was lodged in Ötzi's left shoulder, which immediately transformed the narrative from a previously thought accidental death to a prehistoric murder case. Further analysis showed that the arrow severed his subclavian artery that must have caused a fatal blood loss within minutes. And thanks to modern science, forensic analysis using 3D modeling and animation techniques has provided new insights into his final moments, confirming, for example, the arrow trajectory and identifying a previously undetected hematoma as well. That could be the result of that. So it's unbelievable the amount of detail that could be taken out of that one specimen.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't find the killer as well. But of course, we have to take into account the secret, unknown second shooter who was on the grassy knoll just on the other side.
Yeah. But that could have easily been some kind of a feud, because some evidence suggests that he had been involved in a violent conflict a few days earlier. Because he had a deep kind of wound on his right hand, which showed signs of healing. Hence the couple of days delay between the two things. Obviously, a healing could not have happened after death. So there had to be a bit of time between the two. So it's exciting Absolutely, but it's an exciting forensic case, and it's mind-blowing. But since we're not a purely science show to enjoy such a scientific discovery, let's have a look at a couple of things that are interesting from the skeptical point of view. So, first of all, Ötzi had 61 tattoos, which is all fine, They are simple lines and dots created by inserting charcoal into small skin incisions. So that must have been painful, actually. I don't have a tattoo, but my understanding is that it's still painful,
Yeah,
no matter how
so,
you do it.
yeah.
So you don't have one either.
No.
Okay, we know better. Okay, but it looks like these skin incisions weren't decorative, or the tattoos themselves, but rather therapeutic. Because they were strategically placed over the areas of joint pain. Well, the formations that must have been very painful. When you think about that, that's very fascinating. However, some, even in scientific papers, claim that the placement of tattoos corresponds to traditional acupuncture points. And people tend to get so excited about this because if this is indeed some form of acupuncture we see there, it would predate known acupuncture practices by over 2,000 years.
Well, 5,000 sometimes. Some people say 5.
Yeah. So it's interesting. However, I do think that it's a classic case of mixing real science with pseudoscience. But honestly, we have not much of an idea of how sophisticated medicinal practices were in Ötzi's time. For example, he was carrying medical supplies, which included birch polypure fungus with antibiotic properties that are known even today, and bracken fern. And that is mildly toxic for humans and might have been used for treating intestinal parasites, which he did indeed have.
Wow.
So this suggests systematic knowledge of medicinal plants and therapeutic practices, even if those are questionable from a current modern scientific point of view. But of course, there is something else. Ötzi, being a mummy, obviously had to be surrounded by some kind of a myth. And of course, it is a curse-like craze that people came up with. And, well, media sensationalism has perpetuated that myth of Ötzi's curse that linked 7 deaths to his discovery, including, and the most famous one of those, is his co-discoverer, Helmut Simon, who happened to have died in a mountaineering accident in 2004. 13 years after discovery. So
well, obviously this is a guy who likes to climb glaciers, and that's dangerous sometimes.
It's not the safest thing to do.
No.
That's for sure. Yeah. And their initial idea of what Ötzi could have been was exactly that it was a mountaineer who had suffered an accident. So the accidents do happen. This curse narrative pretty much mirrors earlier media fascination with supposed the pharaoh-related curses, that we all have heard of. But it lacks any scientific foundation. So statistical analysis reveals no supernatural pattern. When you think about it, over 800 researchers have worked on Ötzi across 3 decades. Now, 7 deaths among hundreds of participants over 30 plus years falls very well within expected mortality rates.
Yeah, it's like being a member of AFD, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like we talked about last week, yeah. So it represents classic confirmation bias rather than any supernatural causation. So I would say, as with other extraordinary claims, the burden of proof lies with proponents, and so far, none of the required proof exists. So, 34 years after his discovery, Ötzi continues yielding new insights through advancing technologies. He's the most famous archaeological find ever. Lots of tourists are interested to go and see him, but there are still ongoing studies, and recent ones have refined understanding of his ancestry, appearance, and health conditions, and advanced imaging techniques and molecular analysis continue revealing details about the whole of Copper Age life and death. And the Iceman's legacy extends far beyond his individual story, because he represents the power of interdisciplinary scientific collaboration, which demonstrates how archaeology, genetics, medicine, and forensics can reconstruct intimate human stories across a wide time frame, like even millennia, And rather than the supernatural curses that people propagated to be believed to be occurring, Ötzi embodies the triumph of rigorous scientific methodology over sensationalism. And I'm paying tribute here to a man who continues teaching us about our shared human past even 5,000 years after he died. And he was discovered on the 19th of September 1991. Hence his mention on This Week in Skeptical History.
A fascinating story.
It is indeed. And I can't wait to find out more as science progresses. I'm pretty sure there's more of it. Okay, from the distant past, let's go to the past week or so and find out what happened across Europe.
Yes, András, are you ready to be governed by our new AI overlords?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, very good. Because something is happening in Albania, which seems to lead into that direction. It started rather innocently, I would say, in January this year, when Albanian government wanted to facilitate for the citizens how to get access to certain public services and get help with digital documents. So what they did was they developed an AI for this, and they based the look and the voice of this AI on a very popular Albanian actress called Anila Bisha. I hope I pronounced that roughly correctly. So the AI itself they called Diela, or perhaps more likely Diele in the local language, and that means sun in Albanian. So this AI was developed by the National Agency for Information Society of Albania, or the AKSHI, AKSHI, I guess. It was introduced in January, as I said, as a virtual assistant, and it was integrated into something that's called the e-Albania platform. Okay, so far so good. It seems to have been rather successful. It is represented online as an animated avatar in traditional Albanian clothing, and the system can issue digitally stamped documents. By September 2025, it had assisted with more than 36,000 documents and nearly 1,000 services. So good use of AI, it seems, to me. But now, what's new this week, or last week rather? On 11th of September, Diela was formally appointed, quote, Minister for Public Procurement, end quote. That is quite a step. First, there had to be a presidential decree that authorized...
Exactly, that's what I'm going to say. That how did that happen?
First, the president had to make a decree to authorize the prime minister, called Edi Rama, to oversee the creation operation of a virtual AI minister. So procurement responsibilities, so that is buying stuff, right? They are planned to be transferred gradually to the system to reduce political influence in the tender procedures. And the primary stated reason for this is that it is part of a broader anti-corruption reforms or set of reforms aiming to align Albania with European Union standards. The logic behind it is that if you have no human involved in buying things, there's nobody you could bribe. So the thinking is that this AI minister will be able to make these purchases without any bias. Well, we'll see how that works. Interesting experiment, I think. The Prime Minister, Edi Rama, said that Diela will examine every tender and contract received by the government from private companies and objectively assess the merits of each. So we'll see.
It's a very interesting concept.
Yeah, it is. But, of course, it's rather controversial in a way. Rama, the Prime Minister, he was re-elected in May and has previously said that he sees AI as a potentially effective anti-corruption tool. So this is in line with that, I guess. And the background is, of course, that they've had problems in Albania for a long time with this purchasing being a source of corruption. And there have been scandals. And experts say that this is a hub for international gangs seeking to launder money. So even members of the government have been accused of being involved in this. So now we put it on Diela, the AI minister. And I think it seems to have been received well in Albania as such. If we have Albanian listeners, maybe you can correct me on that. But from what I read, local media praised the move as a major transformation in the way the Albanian government conceives and exercises administrative power. So that's a quote. Yeah, I don't know. But the thing is, can you really have a computer being a minister and to govern a country? Maybe that's a solution to all our problems, but it can create new ones as well, I guess. Who voted for Diella to become a minister? Well, nobody, I guess.
Well, if you think about it, ministers are usually not voted on.
No.
Ministers are appointed.
Correct.
By the head of the government. So
yeah, but very often when you vote, you have a pretty good idea who will be, at least the major, bigger, the more heavy minister post. You know who is going to get that, or you know a couple of people that can come into question. Yeah. But I think this is a world's first, and we'll see how it lands.
I don't know. I'm in two minds about this because on the one hand, I understand this need for getting rid of biases, which is probably a good direction. I mean, this might be a step in the right direction. But on the other hand, there could be several other, if not personal biases that a human could have, but falsehoods can get in the system.
Yeah.
We know that even those systems that are there for analysis could occasionally draw the wrong conclusions based on the data. So it's very, very interesting.
We know that AI can hallucinate, right? So maybe it starts buying all kinds of stuff that it shouldn't be buying. And also we know that it's susceptible to foreign influences. We know that Russia has successfully managed to get falsehoods into ChatGPT and stuff. So you have to be careful with this. Somebody needs to monitor. Who monitors this? I don't know, because that person could be bribed as well then.
Exactly.
No real solution.
So we'll just have to wait and see how this experiment goes. And so how long will it take? I mean, is there a time frame for this?
Well, that's interesting. No, I don't know if there is a trial period. I know that the license to use this actress, this likeness, will expire in December. So either they'll have to prolong that, or they'll have to get another actor to model it on, or something like that. Maybe it's not a big problem, but...
Change personality.
Yeah.
Imagine it could be now a male and then turning into a female. And that opens up a whole new can of worms.
The world's first trans AI minister.
Exactly.
That would be a new thing. Yeah.
That would make the headlines, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, another thing made the headlines, at least in Italy, that has something to do with, decision making. So on the 8th of September, at approximately 4 a.m. local time, a deliberate arson attack destroyed around 5,000 solar panels at an under-construction energy park in Vidalba, Sardinia, Italy. Security cameras captured 2 individuals exiting a vehicle and deliberately setting fire to the photovoltaic installation, which is owned by a local company, RVRU. And the Sassari Fire Department worked for several hours to extinguish the blaze, which required intensive firefighting efforts. So the problem is that this wasn't an accident or equipment failure. This was a calculated act of sabotage that destroyed millions of euros worth of renewable energy infrastructure. And to understand this whole incident, we need to examine the volatile situation surrounding renewable energy development in Sardinia, because unfortunately this is not an isolated incident. In the last year or so, there have been a couple of similar incidents. The Italian island of Sardinia has become a battleground over energy transition, with the regional government imposing an 18-month moratorium on new renewable projects in July 2024. This followed a surge of permit requests that were totaling 54 gigawatts of renewable capacity, which is an unbelievably high number. especially for normal energy production as well, but for renewable capacity, it's just mind-blowing. It's to compare it with Hungary's overall energy production capacity is about 10 gigawatts.
Huh.
And that's the whole of Hungary. So 54 gigawatts of renewable capacity is just unrealistic. So it's nearly 10 times what Sardinia actually needs to meet its 2030 climate targets. Okay, so no wonder that the government imposed that 18-month moratorium, because they wanted to stop this whole thing. Like they wanted to cut it.
Enough.
Yeah, enough is enough. This shows that there might be something malicious going on in the background with those requests, permit requests. The question emerges, especially because it's Italy and it's Sardinia. It might be all kinds of speculations. I mean, energy and field speculations or property speculations. So the regional president, Alessandra Todde, campaigned on stopping what she termed the renewables invasion, so to speak, tapping into widespread local fears that multinational companies are exploiting the island for energy production that will primarily benefit mainland Italy. We don't know if it's multinational companies or it's locals, organized crime could be involved in that as well. But there seems to be a role that misinformation plays here. Because what makes this incident particularly concerning is how it reflects the real-world impact of climate and energy misinformation. As the Sardinian Renewable Energy Association and the Italian Federation of Social Mediators for Renewable Energy noted in their joint statement, I quote, "Anti-renewable energy campaigns driven by false and biased media exploit public fears of invasion and exploitation that only exist in news headlines." End quote. That's a total chaos that seems to be unfolding there. So the organizations identified, quote-unquote, powerful economic interests linked to natural gas as driving much of the anti-renewable narrative. Their concern extends beyond property damage to the climate of hatred that risks fueling copycat attacks, and there have been a couple of examples of that. And they noted that online comments celebrated the arson as something to applaud. And we can imagine that happening because we have seen that happen with other topics as well. But this attack occurs against the backdrop of documented criminal infiltration in Italy's renewable energy sector. Research has revealed connections between organized crime families and renewable energy projects, particularly in southern Italy. The most notorious case involved Vito Nicastri, known as the Lord of the Wind, who had 1.3 billion euros in assets seized in 2013 for alleged mafia connections. So this is how you destroy the whole energy transition project. You let organized crime families involved in them and they destroy everything, because then the whole trust of the public will be destroyed. And there was a Berkeley study by researcher Lauren Pearson that found that the Sicilian mafia has weaponized wildfires using arson to clear land for renewable energy projects while simultaneously profiting from emergency response contracts.
Yeah.
Isn't that outrageous? I mean, it's about nothing else but money. Grabbing more and more and more and making connections. So obviously, this creates a perverse incentive structure where criminal organizations benefit from both destruction and reconstruction.
Yeah.
It's like...
Well, I guess it's expected. You know, they go where the money goes, of course. Exactly. So the attack in Sardinia reflects broader European patterns of renewable energy misinformation as well. There was a recent Columbia Law School report that identified 33 common false claims about solar and wind energy, noting that much disinformation originates from deliberately misleading sources funded by fossil fuel interests. There are common myths that include claims that solar panels cause fires, when in reality properly installed systems pose minimal fire risk, or that electromagnetic fields from solar farms harm human health. We know of those claims as skeptics. We come across those all the time. And we know that studies show that exposure levels similar to household appliances can be measured there, so there's nothing to see.
Yeah, the whole incident illustrates that misinformation campaigns can translate into real-world violence. And when false narratives about renewable energy take root, whether claiming they're harmful to health, ineffective, or part of some conspiracy, they create the ideological framework for extremist actions. Yeah, this attack on the 8th of September, it represents more than property damage. It's a symptom of how energy misinformation can fuel real-world violence. And this is a good example of why we need to fight misinformation. Because when false narratives about renewable energy intersect with legitimate concerns about local autonomy and economic exploitation, they create a toxic environment where sabotage becomes rationalized as resistance. And when that point is reached, it inevitably leads to violent actions. So, yeah.
All right. Okay, so back in April, we gave the Really Wrong Award to Swedish Princess Madeleine because she was to collaborate with a company called Weleda, which I'm sure many of our listeners are familiar with. The reason to bring it up again is that last week was the big launch of the products. So her scheme is to sell cosmetic products, and that's not the problem, I guess. Even princesses will have to be able to do business sometimes, especially she is very far down in the succession line, so she doesn't have anything really going for her as a princess. She has to have a regular job, so she decided to do this. But the big problem is with the choice of partner, with Weleda. By the way, Weleda is spelled with something that looks like a W, but it's not a W, it's a double V. It's a German double V, so I pronounce it Weleda, not Weleda, just for our English listeners. So, okay. Yeah, just a little bit language lesson there. So Weleda is a big producer of anthroposophical products. And anthroposophy, of course, was founded in the early 1900s by Rudolf Steiner, who believed in lots of esoteric things like theosophy and angels and the influence of the moon in mystical ways. With anthroposophy, he founded the famous Steiner schools, also known as Waldorf schools, and also the quasi-religious anthroposophical alternative medicine that Weleda is now. Probably, I think they are the biggest producer of that. And some of these so-called medicines are inspired by homeopathy, which means they are homeopathically diluted into nothingness. Others are based on herbs that need to be prepared in very, very silly ways, like they have to be harvested in moonlight or not. When full moon is very important, apparently. And the potion that they produce, it has to be stirred a certain number of times counterclockwise and then clockwise. And, it's all mumbo-jumbo magic thinking. Also, Weleda on their website recommends homeopathic remedies for children, claiming that they, quote, stimulate the body's own natural healing ability, end quote. Which is, of course, nonsense. Homeopathy is just sugar pills.
It doesn't do anything.
Doesn't do anything. I guess in a way it does stimulate the own immune system, because that's the only thing you got left if you only take homeopathy. Leave it to the natural immune system. They also sell both children's toothpaste and breastfeeding tea, which contains fennel, but fennel contains estradiol. I think that's how it's pronounced, estradiol. It's a substance considered to pose a cancer risk for children. So don't put that in children's products, please. The European Medicines Agency, the EMA, advises against giving fennel products to children under 11 years of age. Swissmedic, the Swiss agency for the evaluation of medicinal products, advised against the use of fennel during pregnancy and breastfeeding. And they did that as recently as in March last year, 2024. So this is absolutely inappropriate. But it's not just, speaking of Weleda, it's not just that their products are nonsense or even dangerous. In 2012, it was revealed that Weleda, along with some other companies in the industry, paid a person to defame online critics of homeopathy and other so-called alternative medicine scam. And speaking of scam, this is a term used by Edzard Ernst, and he was one of the guys who was attacked online by people paid by Weleda. So not a good company to do business with. Then, another reason for a Swedish princess not to be associated with scam is that the Swedish king, so Madeleine's father, Carl the 16th Gustav, Carl the 16th Gustav, and let's not go into why the number is in the middle of the name there. We have talked about that before. Yeah. But Carl Gustav, every year he awards the Nobel Prizes, including the prize in physiology or medicine. So a collaboration between Weleda and a member of the royal family is a serious thing. That shouldn't happen. You know, that it's damaging the credibility of the Nobel Prizes potentially. Uh-huh. So we, the Swedish Skeptics, we pointed all of this out in an email to the Office of the Marshal of the Realm. So that's something. In Swedish it's called Riksmarskalksämbetet. So there will be a spelling competition later on. So the Marshal of the Realm is a fancy title for the highest official of the Royal Court of Sweden. And this Marshal of the Realm is appointed by the monarch, and he is, or she is, directly responsible for the organization and affairs of the court, for the royal court, and for coordination, communication concerning the royal family. So we sent an email to them, and we got a reply. And the reply was that it was not their business to look into this because the princess conducts her business activities as a private individual. And therefore they have, quote, no reason to comment on the company and its product, end quote. Well, the header of the press release from the royal court said, Princess Madeleine starts company. So there she uses princess in the...
Exactly. Yeah, so that's not private at all.
No. So now we come to the famous launch of all of these products. So how did it go? Apparently, the turnout in the boutique in Stockholm that they used for this launch, the turnout was very thin. Very few people showed up, so I guess that's a good thing. And this boutique also has an online thing. I don't really understand it, but it seems that you can log on there, you can create an account, and it's almost like a social media sort of thing where you can follow certain products. They don't just do this thing with Madeleine, they do a number of other beauty products as well. And I looked into the sub-page concerning Madeleine's products, and the day after, I think 18 people had signed up. So now it's a little bit more. I think it's over 200, but hopefully this will be a big flop.
Okay, yeah. Well, it sounds like Princess Madeleine would be very much deserving of, well, a mocking prize of sorts. Well, too bad that she cannot be nominee for the Golden Board. Which is the Goldenes Brett vom Kopf. So every year, the Skeptics of Vienna hand out a very special award. Well, not a Nobel Prize, not a Grammy, not even an Oscar. This one is for the greatest pseudoscientific nonsense of them all, the Goldenes Brett vom Kopf, or in English, the Golden Board in front of the head. And on Saturday, October the 25th, for the 13th time, the Stadtsaal in Vienna, which is the
City Hall.
The City Hall, exactly. The building will host this celebration of satire. What is the goal? To shine a skeptical spotlight on those who confuse science with snake oil and who promote nonsense when they should darn well know better. Because let's face it, in 2025, anti-science really thrives. The big question is, who's competing for the prize this year? That's up to the listeners, especially if they live in a German-speaking country, because the organizers are inviting nominations right now at goldenesbrett.guru. Think about the loudest voices promoting conspiracy myths, miracle healing gadgets, or the latest revival of astrology. Maybe it's adrenochrome hysteria, maybe pineal gland esoterics, or tongue diagnostics, or whatever happens to be the pseudoscientific flavor of the year. If it's absurd, if it's refuted, and still being sold for profit, fame, or influence, it belongs on the list. So, from all the submissions, a jury of scientists and communicators will select 3 finalists. At the ceremony, these nominees are presented with sharp analysis, biting satire, and yes, plenty of laughter. In the end, one of them will claim this dubious honor as the winner of the Golden Board 2025, but that's not all. The Skeptics also hand out a Life's Work award for those whose careers seem entirely dedicated to pseudoscience. And the live audience gets to cast votes for their very own audience prize. The evening will be led by Martin Puntiga from the famous Science Busters, with science communicator Bernhard Weingartner at his side. Joining them are physicist Michael Lemeszko from the Institute of Science and Technology, Austria, psychologist Maria Christina Niemerfor of the University of Bonn, and journalist Verena Mischitz of the Climate Journalism Network, Austria. A panel ready to put nonsense in its place. So, and if you're wondering what kind of achievement actually wins such a prize, last year's Golden Board went to the pseudoscientific healing gadget called Healy. We did talk about that. Go back and listen to episode 456, because that's when we reported on Healy getting the prize. A flashy little device, by the way, marketed as a miracle cure-all, but delivering little more than expensive electrical vibes. So it's a perfect material for skeptical humor. So here's your chance. Nominate the worst offenders of 2025, buy your tickets to the event, and be part of a night where science laughs back. It will be happening on the 25th of October, which is a Saturday, at 7:30 p.m. live at the Stadtsaal, Vienna.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
All right. So, something that is not so fun now. For purely biological reasons, I've never taken a mammogram. I guess you haven't either, András.
No, I haven't.
No, not yet anyway. We'll see. We'll get there. Well, of course, a mammogram is a very useful diagnostic tool to help find breast cancer. It's regularly done in many countries, most countries, I think. Now, there was a viral post on X by the end of July, and as per early September, it has received over 1 million views, and the post said, "Breaking news, Switzerland becomes the first country to ban mammography, a global medical scandal exposed!" Exclamation mark. And then it said, Switzerland becomes the first country to ban mammography, exposing the shocking truth behind the medical industry's biggest scam. Discover how mammograms harm women with up to 60% false positives, cancer risks, and profit-driven system exploiting millions. It is time for safer, non-invasive alternatives! Exclamation mark. So Snopes have looked into this, and if we disregarded the medical claims here for a second, we'll come back to that. Switzerland has not, and has no plans to, ban mammograms. That's just an outright lie. It's not true. But this claim is not new. It has surfaced many times since at least May 2024, and similar claims have circulated way back since 2014, because the then Swiss Medical Board published a report questioning the efficacy of breast screening programs. So there was a question, and of course you should question everything, but that was the start of this rumor, really. So many self-appointed experts and influencers online promote ultrasound examinations instead as a safer and better, quote-unquote, alternative to mammograms. So let's have a look at that and how it compares. Well, first of all, ultrasound often misses some microcalcifications in the breasts. So ultrasound can miss important information. Mammograms are accused of causing cancer or making it spread because of 2 reasons. The first one is that there's a little radiation in taking the X-ray. The other is that when you compress the breast, which you have to do, and which I understand is pretty painful, but you have to do it to get a good picture, that has been rumored to spread. If you already have cancer, this pressing could spread, make the cancer metastasize, but that's not true. Then it's claimed that ultrasound has no downside. That's misleading. If you use ultrasound instead of then you often have to do biopsies to follow up suspected areas, and that's unnecessary, and every such thing is a little risk and it's costly. So guidelines do not recommend ultrasound alone for average risk screening. Instead, it should be seen as a complement to mammography in certain cases. And as we know, breasts come in all kinds of different shapes and sizes, and also in different densities. For denser breasts, it can be hard for mammograms to detect certain anomalies, and then ultrasound can be used as an additional tool. So we need both. We should not worry about mammograms because the radiation that is involved is so low that it's not really a problem. And this thing with compressing the breast, that's just a myth. That doesn't happen. So both methods fulfill a purpose and are used slightly differently. They should still be used, both of them. And Switzerland has no plans of banning mammography.
Good. They have a tendency to do silly things like holding a referendum on whether to have homeopathy on the national health care system. But other than that, this is good news that they don't plan to ban it. Okay, but that brings us to the end of the news round, which means that we're about to find out who's been really wrong lately.
András, I'm afraid it's Orbán time again.
I was afraid you would say that.
Well, so the other day, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán shared a video of a speech that he made in which he strongly criticizes Sweden, which he can, of course, be allowed to do if he knows what he's talking about. But in this video, which was filmed...
Not famous for that.
Not his strong side, no. In the video, which was filmed at a political event this weekend in the town of... And I have no idea how to pronounce this. András, I will put this in the chat for you because this is totally unpronounceable for me. Here we go.
Sátoraljaújhely.
Exactly, what you said. That's exactly where he was. And he talked about crimes in Sweden. So in this video that is shared, there's footage from his speech, but there's also images from Swedish police and crime scenes trying to build up some excitement about that. And then he said, quote, "The Swedish people deserve better." And then in the video he says, quote, "This week's news is that 284 underage girls have been arrested for murder in Sweden. Not because they killed a person together, but each one separately," end quote. So 284 different murders, all committed by underage girls, and he claims that they've been used by the mafia as shooters as they cannot be convicted in court because they are too young and too pretty, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah. But the true number...
I haven't heard of this.
But the true number of underage girls investigated for murder in Sweden in 2024 was 4 people. Not 284. That makes Orbán off with about 7,000% in his assessment. And also, they were accused. I don't know how many were actually convicted or if they are actually... So it's very minor. There are a few cases, not 284. What is true is that there are about 280 cases in Sweden with girls investigated for violence of varying degrees. It can be just, somebody hits each other at school or something, or serious stuff as well, but not murder. So even if you look at all the murders in Sweden in 2024, that only comes to 92. That includes everybody who was killed, which of course is terrible in itself. But that makes it impossible.
92 more than it should be. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But it's only a third of what he claims have been committed only by young girls. So he got it really wrong. But then the Swedish Prime Minister, Ulf Kristersson, he replied to Orbán's tweet because he shared this on X. So Kristersson called out Orbán for lying. Which, to be fair, I mean, he was lying, but I mean, you can be a little bit more balanced and diplomatic if you're a prime minister. But anyway, he did that. Because Orbán could...
I think Orbán is way past that.
I know. But I mean, think
other
just
leaders with Orbán.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but two prime ministers communicating online maybe shouldn't use that kind of words, because in theory, Orbán could have just been mistaken, I guess. But that only made Orbán double down. And he replied, and this is part of the reply, quote, "The abandonment of traditional values, the neglect of common sense and weak governance has led to barbarism taking root in the home of one of Europe's greatest nations. Criminal gangs are using underage girls as instruments in killing," end quote. And as I said, I went through the statistics. There's no evidence for that at all. And of course, there's no evidence at all that quote-unquote traditional values, whatever that is, would have any role in any kind of violence in the society. I mean, in the old traditional quote-unquote days, knife fights were very common in Sweden, just to mention one thing. I mean, if you go back like 80, 60, 70 years or so, that happened all the time. So so let's not go back to those traditional values. So anyway, Viktor Orbán, spreading disinformation just because it suits his narrative, gets this week's award for being really wrong.
Couldn't be more proud.
Well, it's not his first. It's not his first, and I suspect somehow it's not his last either. So.
I know. Anyhow, thank you very much for that, Pontus. That was a very well-deserved prize once again. And that brings us to the last part of the show, which is a quote. And I thought that I'd bring another Hungarian who made much more sense in his lifetime that Orbán will ever be able to. Yeah, and he was a Hungarian biochemist and a Nobel laureate and a discoverer of vitamin C, actually, and lots of oxidative processes within cells. But he was a celebrated researcher who went by the name Albert Szent-Györgyi. And what he said was the following: "Research is to see what everybody has seen and think what nobody has thought."
Okay, interesting, yes. I guess some researchers see some things that others have never seen, but I guess I understand the sentiment. You look at things and understand it in a way that nobody else did before.
Yeah. All right, and that brings us to the end of this week's episode, and I'd like to thank you, Pontus, for your continued efforts.
Thank you. Thank you.
Many, many thanks to our listeners as well for their continued support and listening, for tuning in. Please keep doing so. And until next week, goodbye.
Hej då!
Vislat.
This has been your ESP experience. The show is produced and recorded by TheESP.eu. Join us again next time, but until then, please send your feedback and comments to info@TheESP.eu. We would also love to hear your ideas and suggestions regarding topics, and if you have any skeptical news from any European country, we're always eager to hear about them. If you have an upcoming local event or an organization to promote, please don't hesitate to let us know, as we are more than happy to help. All music in the program was written and performed by Keisha J. Gray and George Robb and is used with their permission. Please check out our webpage for show notes and archive material at theesp.eu. Follow us on Blue Sky at theesp.bsky.social. Like us on Facebook or support our work on patreon.com/theesp. And don't forget to spread the word by sharing our content with others.
I don't know how you can believe.
Which means they are homeopathically.
By Martin Puntingham. Martin Puntingham.
A global medical scandal exposed! Exclamation exclamation point. Mark. Exclamation mark? Fan vad irriterat.